Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who is listening us today. My name is Martin Vitek, and welcome to Beyond the Pivot, the podcast that brings you to the entrepreneur stories and startup ecosystem stories in Africa. Today, we have a great guest. Her name is Vwanganji Bowa, and she is the founder of Mighty Finance. It's a fintech company out of Zambia who is now expanding to Malawi through her business called Mama Pay. I feel like you will enjoy this show and this interview that is led by my colleague Capvela, because it is a story of resilience, a story of failure and success, and a story of how to bring value to your community and then expand it to a functioning business. So sit tight, get something warm to drink, and enjoy the interview with Vwanganji. I promise you will like it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Beyond the Pivot podcast. As always, I always use the word excited because I really am. I'm super excited about our guest today. We have an amazing startup founder. The founder, I'll just give it to you straight away, is Vwanganji Bowa. And Vwanganji, I saw quite a number of names on your LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to understand the meaning, especially Amatende, which is something I didn't understand in Vwanganji as well. But we have Vwanganji Hope Amatende Bowa, who's the CEO and founder of Mighty Finance. Vwanganji has been part of the Bongo Hive Network. She was one of our second cohort of the Standard Chartered Women in Tech program and has been quite a key member of our network. Vwanganji has always been in her expertise. She has worked in the banking sector, agriculture sector, and now she is a startup founder. Today, we're interested in the Mighty Finance story, and we'll be excited to hear your story, what you're doing at Mighty Finance, and where you see some of the next changes for African startups will be in the next few coming years. So, Vwanganji, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Kawela, for having me here today, and I'm super excited to share my story. Hopefully something not yet shared out into the media yet.
Absolutely. I hope it will be really an unfiltered conversation, and glad that you made time. So maybe just to get us started, please tell us, who is Vwanganji? Tell us about your story.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So my name is Vwanganji Bowa, and I'm the CEO and founder of Mighty Finance, and our market name is Mighty Fin. And this is basically an online lending platform where we provide access to credit, to small businesses and individuals. And ideally, we're leveraging technology to be able to have this credit deployed to the small businesses.
And if you can tell me about your personal background as well, right? Because sometimes it's difficult to harmonize different parts of yourself. So it could be that you were in the agriculture sector. How does that relate to the banking sector and all of these other things that make up Vwanganji? Or maybe please tell us about what are all of these other things that make up Vwanganji and how it got you to where you are today.
Awesome. So basically, Vwanganji worked in a bank. I'd worked in a bank for a couple of years, and that was where I had now my first interaction with small businesses. And basically, my working in the bank, I had a career trajectory to really excel in the corporate world. And so I ended up being an accidental entrepreneur, or so I consider myself. Because after I left my banking career, I had then engaged a couple of my clients who were like, look, we can show you the ropes on how to start farming. And when you see people depositing money every day, things to be moving well, I just figured, wow, how hard can it be? So my first stint at being an entrepreneur was really an agro entrepreneur. So I started raising chickens for brown table eggs. But in that line, I then got exposed to, what really it is to run a business. And I began to think more clearly around how can I help women within my community to be able to access credit and make more useful time make more use of their time to really create something that would drive their homes. And then I went on a journey now to work on myself. So that was now getting into accelerators, incubators. But on the career front, I then took a point to go and work for a financial institution where they're dealing with women in financial inclusion and youth as well. I was there for a year, and then I went into government liaison. So I worked with the foreign government here in Zambia just to build up that rapport. And then after that, I hang my boots and said, I'm now going into being an entrepreneur. So all the while I'd been toying around with the idea of starting to raise the business. But then at that point, and that's pretty much when COVID hit, when I pretty much just said, let me go full force into Mighty Fin and let us be able to let people access credit and let them use it when they need to.
It's a story I want to, I think, double click on because it's very, very important, right? So you're in the bank, you're seeing all of this money that the farmers and agro dealers are depositing. You're like, hey, I've got to make that money, and you start out that chicken run. So please tell me, around that time, did the money come? Were you also depositing these big fat checks into the bank account? What happened right there?
So I should say that I failed lamentably at this business, and it's so many other reasons that I'm very happy happened at that time, but I didn't get to deposit the fat checks. I think one thing I can say is, as a startup, I managed to at least put myself together and get a bank loan. And, just having a commercial bank really trust your idea and what you were doing gave me a lot of confidence in what I was doing. But at the same time, because I could not couple that with knowledge on accounting, on marketing, understanding my industry or the business itself, we ended up defaulting on that particular loan. And it was a collateral-based loan. And so after that, the house that I'd put on as a collateral also was taken away by the bank. So it was a very bad experience, but it was a huge teacher as well, where so many lessons were drawn from there. I'm happy to say that at this time I rebuilt that house. It was my father who trusted me with his house. So yeah, as an entrepreneur, accessing capital would be quite a challenge.
That's a very expensive lesson.
Very. And happy to have learned it earlier on, because if that were to happen today, there's a whole lot more at stake that really would fall apart. But knowing exactly where to put my feet, I think early on into getting into the entrepreneur space, wow, those were so many lessons I could write a book about.
And if I was to ask just to that very front, if you were going to restart that business before we even talk about your current business, what would you have done different?
I did restart it. And it's working very well.
Oh, you did restart it?
Yes.
Oh. Wow.
I couldn't accept that this wasn't happening, because like I told you, the person who was showing me the ropes and, letting me know how to run this business were quite successful at it. And when I let them know the challenges that we had faced, they quickly brought in someone to help us with the finance, managing our accounts and financials, records and things like that, and also how to engage with the bank at this particular point. So with those couple of lessons, or like I mentioned, being exposed to other incubators or accelerators, we went back and did the business. And now we are sporting like 10, 15,000 trays to the DRC. We pretty much have,
That's impressive. So, congratulations on your success. That's really well done. And yeah, maybe just now, fast forward. So right now you had failed with that first business, and you are now seeing opportunities to lend to other women within the finance space and during the era of COVID, right? What were some of the pertinent challenges that you were seeing these women facing? And generally, are there any challenges that you also see for yourself as a woman in business?
Definitely. I think when I started the business, I did realize that there were so many women who had the capacity to actually undertake a business, but at the same time, they did not have access to capital, and gender biases are there. These are women who would come to our farm with her children, following her. So the kids are not in school. You can see she's a homemaker, but at the same time, she has the capacity and capability to run a business to bring income. So the challenges that are there were firsthand. I could see that they lack access to capital. Financial literacy was also such a huge challenge, not being able to understand finances or where to get money. And it was really also coupled with not having collateral, because where they would then get money, that was required. Myself as a business person, I have found challenges as well in running the business. Much as I got a lucky break to get financing from a bank, I should say that was because I think it was the government had a particular facility for agriculture loans for that particular bank, and that's how we qualified. But ideally, I had been around trying to look for where can we get financing, and I was equally just as challenged as most of them. So yeah, access to capital is really a big thing. Capacity building and understanding how to run a business, that is another thing. And also collateral. Those I would say are pretty much huge.
What do you think makes you stand out really? Like, I like to believe there are quite a number of women empowerment programs, right? But I'd like to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd like to say you have made quite some significant strides when it comes to building Mighty Finance where it is today, right? What are some of the deliberate steps that you think you've really taken that set you apart from everybody else that are facing similar challenges that you're facing?
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. I think there are times I actually think back and say, how did we get where we are? And looking at the many hurdles that I've had to overcome, especially as a female in a male-dominated space, which is fintech, it has been quite challenging. First of all, it's the gender bias. You walk into a room and somebody's like, yeah, so where's the boss? I walk out of the room,
I'm the boss.
I come back and I'm like, the boss is here. So it's those kinds of things where before you begin the conversation, before you can talk partnership, you can talk synergies, you are already put in a particular spot because you're a female and you're in tech speaking, all these big things and, great partnerships. What I have decided to do with all that is understand that that is a challenge that not only I face, but many women are facing today. And I can't just sit and say no because that's going to be the perception, then let it be. I use that to my advantage. So I'm coming to Kabwela and I know he may have a perception that, well, she's just a woman. How much more can we speak? But I'm actually bringing solid things on the table. I'm bringing business that will take your business to the next level. So for me, it has been on making my challenges the stepping stone. So how do I use that particular scenario to my advantage? And every time I walk into the room, I'm very deliberate and intentional about understanding if it's going to be biases or anything and how I'm just going to switch it up and ensure that it works out for my good and for all of us to actually benefit from that conversation. I think that's been the major thing I have done around it.
That's so powerful and empowering. And I think you mentioned in your introduction, you also mentioned quite a number of other things that played a role into your growth, like accelerators, right? That were pouring into you as you were trying to grow as an entrepreneur. But I'm also aware you've been part of other things like leadership programs, right? The Mandela Washington Fellowship program and others as well. What specific role have you seen such programs really play? And is it something that you would recommend to any other entrepreneur? But what's your take really on that particular statement?
I think I am where I am today because of incubators and accelerators. Bongo Hive, so to say. I can't take away, I've not gone to school to learn how to become an entrepreneur.
By the way, Vwanganji, I have to make a disclaimer to our audience. Like, this is not sponsored. Yes, I work at Bongo Hive. These are her views.
Definitely. No, my views, and just really trying to bring it home for anybody who's listening who knows Bongo Hive and would be able to understand what they provide is those kinds of lessons that really have been able to help me to understand what it is to build a business. They have been able to open up networks where I'll be able to go and network with people. I cannot do it on my own. I do not know everything. And I'm one person who really believes in partnerships, in collaborations, cross-sector partnerships to really drive impact. And if that's going to happen, you've got to understand what is my share in this particular venture. What is the other person bringing also for us to actually make this work? And some of those things you would not just be able to have a description and then execute. There's going to be so much under that iceberg that really you have to understand to know to be able to do. So in terms of leadership, in terms of managing the business, in terms of creating strategy, driving that strategy, executing on that strategy, understanding your financials, how do you build a team that is really going to build the business? Those are things that are floated around, but without anybody to really guide you and really make you understand how to do that, it would be a very difficult journey. And for me, I would say they have played a huge role in refining me into a very resilient leader today.
That's so good. I love that. And while we're on that, I'd like us to also just move quickly to Mighty Finance itself, because I think it's come out and it's something that I would like to believe you went through as you were going through the accelerator program. It's something that was a core business that you were being supported on. Could you tell us now maybe deeply what problem you tried to solve at Microfin so that our viewers can understand what you do?
Okay, so at MightyFin, the problem we're solving for is really a lack of access to quick and affordable financing. You find that many small businesses require funds on the go. But then when they go to traditional lenders, they're told you need collateral, or we need certain types of documentation that we need to review to make sure you're credit worthy. And then when the application actually goes through, it takes weeks, it takes months for them to actually get those funds. So you find that a small business that's got an order to deliver 1,000 bags of onion to ShopRite will not be able to make that delivery because ShopRite is not waiting 2 months for them to get their money. So how do we then come in to ensure that these small businesses who are driving our economies, by the way, who are creating the most jobs, come in and get the financing they need when they need it? How can you, like for you, Kabwela, you're an individual, you're able to get a mortgage. At the same time, you can get a personal loan and do what you want. At the same time, you can get some financing from somewhere. Many times, these businesses do not have that opportunity, but they need to be treated in such a way. So I thought, how can we bridge this particular gap, be the finance partner for small businesses to grow, afford them access to finance when they need it, but also how do we appraise them for credit worthiness to avoid human interaction, bring in digital data as collateral, and then ensure that we're able to assess them based on different data sources so that they can access this capital and grow their businesses. So basically, that's what we are on the market to solve. And then quite recently, we've been also working on the Mama Pay, which is a payments platform. And basically with this, we are trying to work with other players on the market where we'll be able to facilitate payments across borders. So how does somebody in Malawi be able to do something in Zambia? They find that prices have changed. I need more money. Can they get that money instantly from Malawi without being charged so much? Transfer fees are a nightmare. And what we're trying to do is ensure that everybody has access to finance, they have access to payments and remittances, and not just maybe across one country, but across the 21 countries of SADC region to start with. So yeah, that's pretty much what we are busy with at McTiffin right now.
Yeah. Great stuff. Now you've thrown me off. You just brought in Mama Pay, and I'm hearing about this for the first time. Now I don't know where I should direct my questions. Should I focus on this? But please tell me, how far are you with Mama Pay right now? Before we can just continue the story, since you brought it up, I'd just like to know: are you still in very an early stage? Where are you right now with the development of that?
So Mama Pay is fairly new, and this has been we're developing this in conjunction with COMESA, a business council, as well as Mojaloop and High People. So basically something that we've done, we've created an MVP for it, and we are yet to go into testing, but we have acquired a partner in Malawi for soft landing, who we are actually partnering with to be able to execute this right now. So this is moving quite fast because we already have a platform that has most of the things that we need. So Mama Pay should be out on the market before the end of this year, and people will be able to use it in Zambia and across.
That's good. That's good. Thank you. So now bringing it back. So I like one approach, multiple things, but one thing that stands out for me, especially when as you describe the need to support small and medium enterprises, is you speak to a problem that you face specifically, right? You got access to finance, quite all right, from a traditional bank, and ended up losing that collateral actually that you had. It could be on one side, the fact that you were quite young in the business space, but also it could be that the type of finance that you got wasn't maybe the best type of financing as an SME that you would have had at that same time. So I love that approach, and I see how that is combined. What would be your thought, just quickly, on entrepreneurs experiencing a problem firsthand and building a product, and those that just think they can just build products that they've never experienced a problem firsthand? Like, what would be your thoughts around that? Because I'm seeing that in your story.
Yeah, I think when you experience a problem, it gives you first-hand insight into the pain point. So you know exactly what you want to do and what's hindering you from doing what you want to do. So at that point, as an entrepreneur, I then begin to ask my questions based on the problem, and that should give me the solution. And I'm interacting with me. I'm the client at this point experiencing this, or the clients to say, can you tell me, how do you think this should, how would you like to access money if money is your hindrance to grow your business? And they'll be like, well, if I want money and I need it tomorrow, I would like to have it now. So then I create a product around getting money quickly to solve my problem. But if I'm creating a product, and we do this as entrepreneurs, we are passionate about our solutions. So I sit down and I think the best way is to create this AI machine product that is going to come and give SMEs the greatest access to finance. I might be trying to solve a problem, but I might miss the pain points of the customer. So I think experiencing it or looking at those experiencing it will build a great solution, as opposed to building a solution for whatever the problem is.
I love that. I love that. And now, talking about the solution, I'm curious to find out, because, like you mentioned, right, you described the problem. There are quite a number of other microfinancial institutions on the market, right, that claim to be solving that particular problem. What do you think sets you apart as Mighty Finance when it comes to addressing the gap for financial inclusion for these marginalized or underserved markets in which you operate?
Awesome. So basically, when we come to looking at the solution, especially where it's fintech, Zambia, we are very new on early on in the curve of fintech solutions. And many people come and say, well, we're offering an online platform and all that. We have not limited our ability to be online or to be a fintech by someone maybe being able to make an application online, which gives us a prompt, and then we proceed with the manual process on the other end. Ours is really an end-to-end process where the tech is actually being used to ensure that we're able to assess creditworthiness. So I'll give you an example of a business. Ideally, what we do is, instead of asking for so much documentation, we then have plug-in points that can assess data within seconds, and that would give us, a scenario on company A, and then we can then understand company A financial health. And it is from that financial health that we're then able to give you credit that is really speaking to your financials, and not just you saying, I need 100,000, when your books are telling us that you would actually qualify for 20,000. So ideally for our tech, it's just leveraging technology in a very secure and scalable manner that would be able to afford us to access, to disperse money within a couple of hours. And that's the biggest differentiator that we have.
Makes a lot of sense. And so something that usually always comes up for SMEs, right? Depending on the stage of development, really. But something that's usually common is that they do not have their books in order, right? Or some don't even have a trail that can be used for them to access finance. How do you, since it's a unique demographic, how do you manage your own risk? Because actually you are a business and you have to make money at the end of the day. But how do you manage that risk when it comes to the due diligence process as you deal with the SMEs?
So today, as much as, we might not be that technologically advanced, we do have everybody who's transacting at some point somewhere. You're using mobile money, you're using a bank account, you're sending money, or you have a digital footprint. And that's the footprint that we are actually following. And this is something that is also encouraging small businesses to be able to use digital financial services in terms of transactions, because now they're understanding that my footprint is actually my collateral. So ideally, it's your footprint on where you make it, where do you make payments, how do you receive money, where are you spending your money? Because for us, it's not just the finance, but it's also your character, it's your credibility, it's your ability and willingness to repay. So all those things we're able to use, from social to footprint. We were able to get a more informed, picture of our borrower, as opposed to reading through statements and then creating a profile from there, which you have given us. We plug into your accounting system, into your banking system, into your mobile account, through CRB, through different other data points, and it gives us a clean picture of who our borrower is.
Makes a lot of sense. And maybe for context, for anyone who might not be in our specific space, someone might have a bank account, but there could be transactions like mobile money where these transactions might be happening. So in as much as a bank statement doesn't show a record of those transactions, you can find at least mobile money. And this has been growing. I think there is a trend, just not in the urban areas, but in rural areas, actually, where there's a lot of use for mobile money. And I see how that footprint definitely does tie into the due diligence process. And I like the aspect of character and other aspects beyond just a statement. I think how that fits into your due diligence. Maybe now with this one, I want to figure out, because you are in quite a highly regulated sector, right? Which is the finance sector. And there could be quite a number of challenges Or maybe you've had it smooth, right? It was just smooth, register. Tomorrow you have all the permits you need. I'd just like to get your perspective on that as well. How's been the registration process, getting your licenses? Now you're working on Mama Pay. How's that process been, just getting to where you are today?
Okay. So I'll start with the second question to say, now that we're working on Mama Pay, how does that work? Ideally with regulation, because of the challenges that we've faced or, uncertainties, we are now working with partners who already have the licensing and would not require us to then go that route. So it's minimized at that point. But with Mighty Fin, on the other hand, we have quite a bit of regulation around that. Like I mentioned, Fintech is pretty new and we don't have some specific policy framework for us to be able to operate in. And as a result, we are now regulated by different pieces of legislature, but of course from the mother body, which is the Bank of Zambia. Currently, we hold a lender's license through the Ministry of Finance and the Magistrate Court, and that's pretty much how it is. But we know that the Bank of Zambia are working with the Securities Exchange Commission to provide us a clear, well-defined policy framework where we'll be able to operate. But other than that, the registration process, of course, fees are expensive and high. We always have to renew our license on a yearly basis, which can be tedious and time consuming as well, because it's not just a straight process. It would take a couple of months, weeks. And so there are those kind of hiccups that you get to encounter. But other than that, so far it's pretty much manageable process.
Okay. And now that you brought up the Bank of Zambia, our regulator, I wanted to find out, I don't know if you know about the sandbox that the Bank of Zambia has been setting up. Have you ever had the interest to pilot your product in such an environment? Or what's your take, or what has been your feel of such an initiative?
Actually, I'm not aware of the sandbox with the Bank of Zambia, but the Securities Exchange Commission. So if the Bank of Zambia have one, it would be great to be on it, because we did make an application to the Securities Exchange Commission for the second cohort, but they could not admit us because they were still reviewing the first cohort's results and trying to see if that was enough to create policy around that. So yeah, if it opens up, definitely would want to be on that.
Yeah, I'm glad that since you've been sharing so much value, I've shared one thing that you didn't know.
Definitely.
But
I'm
yes,
going to pursue that.
Yes, they are setting up a regulatory sandbox for fintech specifically. And actually, a challenge that they have been facing is having a lot more innovative startups going to the sandbox. So it's just a safe environment where you can test and explore different aspects of your innovation as you build.
Okay.
Happy to share
Thanks
that.
a lot.
And maybe now, as we are talking about the landscape, right? I've always described the Zambian startup ecosystem in many aspects, right? Different aspects of it. But I think I would be also interested to find out from a startup, right? As a founder, what your view is currently of where we are as a Zambian startup ecosystem, and what innovations are you seeing? Are there any challenges? What's your view on where we currently are as a country?
So as a country, I think we have a very vibrant ecosystem. It's thriving, it's growing, and it's very young and exciting. Personally, I really, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing with the innovation that is coming up. Many sectors like, fintech, agri-tech, they're really taking on very promising innovations that they're bringing to solve our problems. But as much as we have that component, it's not enough in itself to be able to have a thriving ecosystem. We need to collaborate with the financing side of things. We need to understand, can we get local capital to be invested within the businesses? I can see we're looking more into venture capital and also angels investing in startups, and that is good. But when you look at our current exchange rate with the US dollar, it's posing also quite a huge hurdle to collect so much money in foreign currency. So how do we go about solving those kinds of challenges? If we have local capital, it might be easy for me to get in Kwacha. I'm operating in Kwacha as well. Of course, in terms of the US dollar, you might want to explore other markets that would cushion that, but that's also another route that takes a lot of capital. doing business in Zambia could be very capital intensive when you're starting out. And this is killing quite a number of innovations. A lot of them are not really getting access to, say, accelerators and incubators. We have those that are present, but they can also only accommodate so many entrepreneurs at a time. If we could have more, spread them across the country as well, we would probably tap into more innovation. So, I'm seeing a space where we have innovation that is bright, that is coming up, but we also need a system that is growing and that needs to be well balanced. How can we support small businesses to grow? How can we ensure that they have the capital, the technical capabilities to execute, to grow? Provide an environment where they have the networks. All those things are pretty important for the small businesses to be able to thrive at the end of the day.
Great point. And I like that you've touched on the aspect of finance, especially from the challenge when it comes to external outside capital, right? You are borrowing or getting investment in US dollars, for example. And on the other hand, you are charging your customers or at least trading in the local kwacha, right? And with this currency situation we're in, where it's quite volatile, brings about a huge challenge, and that's so relevant. With that, I would like to find out also what your fundraising journey has been as you've been trying to access capital. Who have been your primary investors that you have approached, and where have you seen the most success?
Yeah, so when it comes to maybe investments as well, like I'm saying, our market is pretty new. So we have quite a lot of people who might want to invest in Zambia, in startups, but then they're also trying to find out how will this play out. They're not sure about the regulation, what kind of frameworks kind of like exist in this ecosystem. And that sometimes would deter people from investing. My journey, on the other hand, was we were very fortunate to have an accelerator invest in our business very early on, like extremely early on. Our vision was still blurred. But when they came in, that then opened up for them and for us as well. There were so many lessons to be learned in terms of how can this be structured? How do we structure this deal? How do we come into this country? How do we ensure that we can deploy capital into Zambia? How do we navigate the legal system there, and all sorts of things? I think one of the challenges that we had faced, even though they went ahead and invested, a requirement was you would need to then have your business registered in another place like Delaware or wherever. And, that seems quite easy. The registration process is very easy, but then it came with some significant complications, which as a startup, we didn't fully understand what that was. And then our own Zambia Revenue Authority didn't give a very clear path on what that process would look like or what the cost would be. So there were a lot of learning points from there, but it then opened up more confidence for other investors to come in. So from there, we then had follow-on investors from another venture firm, capital firm in the US. And then we had one from South Africa, and we've had high net worth individuals as well come in. So it has given us at least a platform where there's been confidence, trust, and viability that has been built by having those investors come in. We've also sourced locally in Zambia.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Are you currently fundraising?
Yes, we are currently fundraising. So we are raising about $1 million for a platform, and of course increasing our loan book. But we already have 250 committed on that.
Okay, brilliant. And what would be your advice for founders in your space, or founders even in other sectors, other similar markets as well? Because as you know, the other side to raising capital for countries like ourselves, like Zambia, is people claim we're a small market, right? Hey, you're a small market, you should be based in Nairobi or South Africa, or all of these other big markets. What would be your advice to other founders that are seeking to raise capital? What would be the best approach?
Well, the best approach is, don't confine yourself to be limited by, first of all, boundaries or your markets, to say, no, I'm in Zambia and this is my market and it's a small market. Zambia is trading with how many are our neighbors? 11 other countries? And there's always a market outside Zambia. There's always a market within Africa. And I think this has been the biggest cry. If we can come out of the box of saying your market in Zambia is small, you're already limiting my thought and my ability to think I can actually have a pan-African solution. So if I'm looking at Africa as my market, I know our economies are facing similar challenges. So my solution doesn't need much tweaking. If it's going to Ghana, if it's going to Morocco, if it's going to South Africa or Namibia, I know that this is a solution that's speaking to a problem that is faced by people everywhere. So I would think that would be the first thing, not to narrow our minds in thinking about that, but it's very important also to determine the market you're starting from, because scaling that way is also not a very easy or cheap thing. And what I would just say to somebody really who's looking to grow their business, is that business is tough. Running a business is tough. It will consume you. It takes so much of you. And there are very few people who would want to live through the resilience and understand that this can, sometimes by this time of the day, you're literally giving up and you're like, I'm done. I'm going to look for a job. I'm done. But you wake up in the morning with this vigor and say, but I've got a solution that we need to deploy onto the market. So it's going to be a tough road. You've got to be resilient. You've got to show up. But at the same time, you understand, if you know the value of what you are bringing, that is the biggest thing that will actually draw your capital, get you a great team, solve a problem, and you can grow and scale.
Makes sense. I love that. And many people say business is hard. And like maybe adding on another layer, which you've mentioned, is it will consume you, right? How have you felt, especially through this next phase of your journey? In what ways has business consumed you? If you can give some context for someone who's wondering or trying to at least make that seem like it's nothing, I will get into it. Yeah.
No, it will consume you in that, like for me, I'm really running in a space that is highly capital intensive. And, I'm not just looking for, can I get this product sell and I'll be able to pay my supplier? My source of capital is really, really, the cost is very high. I need so much of it. So I've had to put in my personal finances, savings. That led me to debt, severing some relationships, friends and family, because not everybody is seeing what you are doing, but you're like, guys, if you could just hold your breath for 2 minutes, I'll be right back. It always doesn't work like that. And so you'll be navigating, how are you going to manage these relationships? You're also navigating you building the business. And believe me, it doesn't always go like your business plan says. We'll start in Lusaka and then we'll be in Kitwe and then we're going to move to 4 different markets. It doesn't. That's what we can show everyone. But at the bottom of all that, it is very, very hard. It's, getting through bureaucracies. There are things that are way out of your control that you still need to build your business. So you're navigating all those challenges within the business. Building a team, I found that to be quite a challenge, because my first stint at building the business was which friend is free, which family member is free, and then they came on board, and then things just, burst out right in my face. It did not work out, because then managing that team, especially if you don't have the proper alignment, becomes detrimental. So I'm one person who's very particular about the culture that I build within the business. And so finding the people to execute, finding the talent was quite a challenge, and is, because you won't afford it in the first place. So again, I'll go back to networks of, the accelerators and all that. You may find people to help you in there to navigate those spaces. But ideally, that's what the journey has pretty much been.
So I'm imagining this young banker, right, seated in an office or at the tailor or at the counter, but basically in a bank, right? And you decide to get into business. And now you with Mama Pay seeking to even serve Africa as a market. That takes some ambition, right? And maybe my question to you, did you always have that ambition even while you were in a bank to operate at that scale? Or what exactly, if not, what led you to growing that ambition to serve even larger markets?
I would say with ambition, that just comes from me. Like, I am a very highly motivated, highly ambitious, and I love to do what I set out to do. And that drives me. And so when I was working for the bank, I was ambitious and I was targeting to say, I'm going to be top of this corporate world. And I think will stop me from that. If you go back to my story with even how I came to building the business, many people have told me, you're so slow. Why don't you do this? This is just easy. You just lend money. It's not just lending money. To build a business, for me, it's about strategy and intentionality. And I was intentional about where I'm going to work, what I will get out of that work, what networks I'm going to build, and where it's going to get me to, and building systems and processes within the business. Because when I scale, that is what I'm going to scale. So ideally for me, I'm a very highly driven person, and that has helped me, setting my goal. Like I said, I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. And when I tasted that, I was like, wow, this does look good. I think I can get into this. I wasn't shown the other picture of entrepreneurship. Like you were saying, it's the deposits and what it looked so good. But I think also what keeps me going even in the bad times would be my drive, my motivation to really, really see, small businesses access capital and grow. It might seem like it's cliche, but really when you think about it, because I like to be on the ground, I go out in our market, interact with small businesses, and to see the transition and growth of a business when you provide capital, when you provide financial literacy training, when you provide them with networks, when you provide technical capacity building, solutions. It's been interesting to hear how a woman would move from being at home and she has an idea and she says, I'm starting a phone booth business. One, we helped fund that. And I asked her, what's your dream? She said, I dream to have 20 of these across town. Right now, she has 7 of them. She's able to take her 2 children to school and they've started building a house with her husband. And it's that kind of story that wakes me up in the morning and say, I've got to do this. So for me, the drive, the motivation is inbuilt, I would say. But yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that story, and I think you've really shown the impact of it. And well done on what you've built, Vwanganji. We're really proud and cheering you on, actually. And so, just before we even wind up, I'm curious because now there's this buzz around technology, right? But you've mentioned this other business, which is almost like an SME, right? I don't know how much technology there is there, but you have an SME that you're a traditional business that you're running. Do you think there's still opportunity for you to be a non-tech or at least a tech-enabled business and not necessarily purely hard tech? And what does that look like, really? I just want to get your thoughts around that and how you're balancing running the two businesses.
Yeah, and I get that question quite a bit. And even from my team, when we're thinking about the future, we are very much alive to, the use of technology and how much technology can be able to assist. We're looking at technology more as an enabler than actually the actual solution. So we also understand that, when we say technology, we're not just looking at the complexity of bringing in all these things that people don't understand or how things work or things are done, but also in saying at whatever level people are, how can we then leverage technology to be able to assist them, to enable them to access the funding that they need. So we are operating on both ends where, for those who are not that technologically savvy, we are able to provide our agents who are there to help them through that process. And we also have those that can easily walk through it on their own. So we haven't thrown away one side of the ecosystem to concentrate on, but we pretty much alive to both ends and balancing our work and deliver of our solution appropriately in those two spaces.
Awesome. So it's, like you said, it's a balance, almost like you have to do both as you build, right?
Definitely.
Awesome. And tell me, so we've come to the end of it. We're almost at the end, but where can people find you, or how can they learn more about what you're doing and Mighty Finance?
You can get more information on our websites. That's www.mightyfinance.co.za. But at the same time, we're at Sunshare on the first floor. So you'd be able to find us there, and most of our contact details anywhere online as well. I'm happy to engage with people who would like to, partner, try and see how we can drive impact within our communities and just help small businesses to thrive.
Great stuff. And what should they be expecting is something you're looking forward to? What are you looking forward to in the next 5 years, next 3 years? What's something that's exciting that they should look out for?
So what's exciting, I think, and driving us quite a lot are both fronts of MightyFin and our Mama Pay solution. So really ensuring that access to finance is an embedded solution. And this is an embedded solution that people can access credit, they can access insurance, they'll be able to access, financial literacy services, we'll be able to make payments and remittances within and across borders. So that's pretty much where we are driving to, and that's the space we are excited to get to.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vwanganji, for your time. You are really a powerhouse, and really we value and are proud of the work that you're doing. Always excited to share as many opportunities that come our way, and share that with you. But also, we value your contribution to the ecosystem. You have been quite active whenever we've reached out for you to participate in any program, and we're thankful for that. And so, thank you for the time and coming through on this podcast.
Really excited and grateful for you bringing me on to here to share my story. And I hope there would be somebody who would then go to bed tonight and really think, wow, it is possible. And they'll be able to get on with it, because it is.
Wow. Wow. That was something. I'm very grateful that Vwanganji was so open to us, and she was not hesitant to share with us her story, even how she lost her house due to failure of her first business, and how she built from that to make Mighty Finance. I love the story that she's always looking for more value, for more work, and the work culture for her is very important. So I'm sure that you took some points from the interview as well, and if you don't mind, please share them in the comments in our YouTube, Spotify, or Apple iTunes. It will help to spread this episode to go even further beyond our amazing 70 subscribers. Stay healthy, be innovative, and if you can, try to learn something new every day. See you at the next episode.